Hi everyone, welcome back to the Dark Pixel Podcast. My name is Mike.
I'm Landon.
I'm Kason.
And today we have Tyler Mire with us. He worked on Shadows of Adam, which is a game that we played a couple of weeks ago on the live stream, on our Friday live streams. And he's going to be here talking to us today about indie development, about his experience working on Shadows of Adam, and just some advice for those of you who are wanting to get into game development yourselves. So, Tyler, if you'd like to go ahead and just sort of tell us what you did on the project and sort of your background in game development, just go ahead and let people know why you're an expert, why they should listen to everything you say.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Tyler Mire. I am the composer and project manager for Shadows of Adam. And this is my first commercial game release, but a lot of us got our start in the early 2000s using RPG Maker. And quick disclaimer, this is not an RPG Maker game. We get asked that question a lot. I just like to lead with that.
Of course.
And yeah, so this game was started back in October 2013, just kind of a chance reuniting of some of us old friends from an old forum. And with a very small vision at the time, we actually were going to make this an 8-bit style game. And it was just me and one of our programmers, Josh Garlitz, and we reconnected in October 2013. And flash forward 3.5 years later, here we are. So it's definitely an interesting story, and I hope I get to talk more about it. But that's
cool.
That's the simple story. And my day job has always been as a freelance trumpet player and composer. I've done a lot of touring, a lot of recording in Nashville, and now I'm in Washington, D.C. and play with one of the military big bands. And
oh, wow, cool. That's
so,
awesome.
That's super
I kind of enjoyed, use playing trumpet to support my video game habit, which is the weirdest thing I've ever said out loud. But
You got to do something. I mean,
super cool.
The habit doesn't support itself.
That's super cool. I always admire when people can actually use music to make a living. I just think that's awesome when somebody is talented enough and like has the chops to actually make that work, because I know it can be really difficult.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Awesome.
we have some questions from our patrons and everything today. I think first we just want to kind of ask about, or what were you going to say, Lynn?
I was going to say, first one's from Digital Bamboo, unless you had something else to
Oh,
say.
I was. So you were talking about how you got together, you reconnected with some people, and decided to make this game. Because we had some background with RPG Maker. We've talked about wanting to get into game development a little bit. We've just spoken lightly about the idea. But it's a daunting thing. Like, how do you go from saying, I want to make a game, to doing what you've done, which is actually produce a commercially released product? And how many other people were working on this project? Were you friends with them before? Like you said, did you just reconnect with a few buddies and get together and do this? What was that process like getting into indie game development, like full on like that?
So, like I had mentioned, Josh and I had reconnected back in October 2013. We had been friends since the early 2000s in a forum called Gaming World, which was kind of the hub for RPG Maker way back in the day. And we were like 12, 13 years old. So the quality of our games were not very good, to put it lightly. And we reconnected in 2013. He had a very small vision to just do kind of an 8-bit style game, very simple, low overhead. And it kind of worked out where that same month I ran into an old friend of mine, Tim Windorf, who is the art director for Shadows of Adam. He was a freelance pixel artist and worked at Zynga for many years in San Francisco.
Oh, wow, cool.
We just kind of happenstance reconnected because I was on an old forum and I was asking if people had a copy of this game he was designing way back in the day. And this was a forum I hadn't posted on in years, and he hadn't checked it in years either. He just happened to check that same day I posted.
No way.
We reconnected, and I said, hey, man, me and Josh are making a game. We could really use like some art. It's going to be very low overhead, some simple art. So he's like, yeah, man, I'm kind of looking to do that. So he got involved in the project and got us started with some very basic art, because we were kind of just doing this for fun, so we didn't want to invest too much. But we kind of started incrementally increasing the quality, and $10,000 later and 2 more members, we are looking at what we have today.
So was it a 4-member team? Is that?
Well, it's actually ended up being 5. So myself, Josh Garlitz, Tim Windorf, our art director. Tim ended up bringing in Luke Watchell, who wrote our story script and did all the level design.
Oh,
And
nice.
the last person we brought in was Tyler Darren, a great programmer from Canada. Josh was starting to have some time constraints, so Tyler was very helpful in doing a lot of the development. So we had all 5 of us, and after that initial investment, we kind of realized that we were in this pretty seriously. We needed to see it out. Tim hired out some really excellent pixel artists, and he sort of supervised the art direction. And you kind of asked, like, what does it take to do the indie thing? The first thing is money. You got to have, unless you're going to really figure out a way to be creative with what you have. And we were very good stewards of our budget, but still it does cost money to get quality work. And especially with a JRPG, which is extremely content heavy, it costs a little bit of money. But once we kind of had our initial investment, we had like a near alpha build, I think, in like late 2015, if I'm getting the timeline right. And so we went to Kickstarter in 2016 and raised about $22,000, which kind of helped us see the end. Kind of recouped some of our initial investment and kind of got us the rest of what we needed. And then basically from 2016 through the end of the year, it was just full steam ahead. Tim was just constantly outsourcing a lot of pixel art. We hired a great sound effect designer, Austin Shannon, who was the guy who did the sound effects for the South Park Stick of Truth game.
He worked for Ubisoft then, right?
Yeah, he was amazing to work with, but he definitely cost some money. I mean, but I'm a firm believer you get what you pay for. And then just a lot of sweat equity and investment, and I think that's kind of what it takes to get to
So you mentioned Kickstarter. What are your feelings about Kickstarter at this point in time? Because we've seen a lot of projects kind of come with a lot of big promises and kind of under-deliver. So, but it appears that was not the case for you guys. You guys were able to manage it well and meet expectations. So, I mean, what do you feel about the state of Kickstarter right now?
Kickstarter is definitely like a blessing and a curse, but it's been mostly really great for us. The one thing Kickstarter really helped us with, besides just getting funding, was getting a lot of valuable feedback from the community. And I can't overemphasize how important that was to the development of Shadows of Adam. Because you can create in a vacuum, and you can make things that you like till the cows come home, but until other people play it and give their opinions and feedback, you're never just going to refine it. And so what we did was we got an hour-long demo for our Kickstarter. So that was already like thousands of people playing the demo, trying to decide if they wanted to back us. And then them posting on our forums or our Twitter, and that feedback helping us grow. And then once we had backers, we sent out an alpha demo about 4 months later, which was about 4 hours long, I think. Got more feedback from that. Then when we had a beta demo, we sent that out to our backers. And so like that's a really obvious plus of having a Kickstarter community around your game.
Yeah, that's right. It's very dedicated people who are going to give you their honest. I mean, they've got a horse in the race, so to speak. They give you their money.
Exactly. Yeah. They have a stake in it too, and they really believed in the project and wanted to see it become as good as it could.
That's cool.
But you mentioned like overpromising. That definitely is something you have to be very careful about. I'm very proud in the fact that we delivered a game a year after our Kickstarter. I think that's pretty rare. A lot of games.
That's a big deal.
There's like a few small things we are wrapping up right now. Like we promised a player's guide, which when it's done is going to be very, very cool. But in retrospect, maybe we could have not done that.
Yeah.
You've
got to find you got to print, right? Yeah.
You think to yourself, oh man, a player's guide would be super cool, but it takes work. But no complaints at all. The Kickstarter was, like I said, mostly very, very great for us.
Cool, good.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Nice, I have one more thing to say though. If you were into RPG Maker 2000, if I use the phrase "my nick is flayed," do you know what that is from?
I do not. What is that?
You don't, Don Miguel.
Don's Adventure?
Yeah, that was it. Yes, the sample game. It was the little talking dog.
Yeah, I saw Mike had posted that on his Twitter, and I felt like I might have been the only one who understood what that was.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, man, that's so good.
So you mentioned that this wasn't made in RPG Maker. What did you use to create the game?
So this was done in Impact JS engine, so JavaScript and HTML.
Oh, Java. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just straight up. That's cool.
Yeah, it was. I think a lot of the coding decisions were because early on this game was supposed to be ported to mobile. This was supposed to be a mobile game.
Yeah, if you did Java, that makes sense.
And so a lot of the early decisions, like the resolution of the game and the way we coded it, were influenced by that. In retrospect, 3 years later, maybe that wasn't the best choice, but it is what it is. The game development is like a fluid process. So as much as you plan, things will change, I think.
Okay.
Regarding that, I'm glad you kind of brought that up. Regarding that, I probably 8 or 9 months ago backed a game. It was the first game I ever backed on Kickstarter called Colloquium. And the way they pitched it, they had a trailer with some beautiful 2D pixel art. And it's kind of like an action game and everything like that. And like 6 months goes by, they don't say anything. They not
got
updating
a
people.
good amount of money.
They got like $35,000.
Yeah.
And then they came out with an update and said, here's a 3D game with a totally different main character, completely different style, and everyone was really upset.
Right.
And regarding that point about how game development needs to be very fluid, you need to be open to having it change. I can imagine how you might have an idea for this is what I want to do, but by the end, it's almost a completely different thing. Was that the case for Shadows of Adam? Or were you able to stay pretty close to your original vision for that?
A lot of the growing pains, I would say, were in the first few months of development as we kept bringing in new members and refining the vision. By the time we went to Kickstarter, I would say what we advertised on our Kickstarter is what we delivered. Because by that point, we had a near alpha build and a strong vision for the game. And if anything, the Kickstarter sort of focused us because it would have been very easy. And I remember there were times where I just did not want to work on Shadows of Adam. I didn't want to like spend the hundreds of hours testing an area's balance, working on treasure chest placement and working on scenes and testing. But the Kickstarter thing sort of focused us. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely have seen that before. I think if you put something on Kickstarter, you should try to honor that. That's why I say it's a blessing and a curse. Done well, it can be very, very helpful. But if you're kind of pitching a more abstract idea or it's not finalized and you don't really have a strong vision and it changes, I mean, a lot of people can get really frustrated. And I think that's fair of them to be frustrated. But I would say like early on, a lot of those decisions were sort of tweaked as we went along.
Yeah. So I've heard from other developers, Concerned Ape, for example, with Stardew Valley. When the project was finished, I mean, he really just crashed.
Yeah.
He felt once it was all done, there was a couple months where he just kind of didn't get anything done. I was wondering if you guys experienced something similar, being finally done with this massive undertaking. What was it like once it was finished?
Well, I'll only speak for myself, but I can tell you that the month after Shadows of Adam was released, like a week after, I basically had like a stress release / sickness crash. I just woke up one morning and just puked like 10 times and then spent like an entire week lying on the couch. It was just like all the stress and everything just sort of hit me at once because I was going 24/7, especially the last few months when we were constantly going out to press, answering questions, fixing bugs. But then, I took after that, I was fine. And then I just kind of took a month to chill. I realized I just needed to sort of be okay with not having the motivation to do much because I had just literally spent thousands of hours and thank God for my very patient wife because there were like the last month before the game came out, I basically told her, I said, look, there's going to be some really late nights. I'm going to have to be testing. I'm going to have to be doing this. And I hope you can understand that. And she was very understanding. But I definitely think it's been like 2 months since the game has come out and I'm finally feeling like ready to start doing some stuff. But the break was, we were all ready for a break, I think.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Is there anything that you took away from that experience that maybe on a future project you would kind of plan things differently, or do you feel like that kind of crunch time that game development usually
Typically
faces is
has,
unavoidable?
It's hard to say. I think, if we did do another game, there'd probably be some things we try to do differently, like the art style changing so much in Shadows of Adam at the beginning. That was a lot of time that we could have cut if we had maybe a stronger vision at the beginning. Also, I'm the worst at like self-imposing deadlines. So when we
Yeah.
released our release date, February 23rd, we sent a press blast to hundreds and thousands of press outlets. And once that date was finalized and on our trailer, that's kind of when the stress happened. And I don't really know a way around that because I don't know. We were in beta from like October 2016, so we had a lot of runway to fix everything. But it seemed like that last month, like things were just falling apart. It seemed that way. I remember we were about 3 weeks out. We had just set our release date, just sent the press out, and we were working on the build. Just everything's going good, and all of a sudden this bug creeps in where music just stops playing, like, and we don't know why. Like, so we're playing the game and the music stops playing, and we're freaking out. We're like, what if we can't fix this? Like, do we delay the release? Like, what do we do? And maybe that's unavoidable, especially with a small team of 5. I mean, we were testing
Right.
nonstop.
Debugging. Yeah.
I think the last few weeks I put everyone on a schedule where we divided the game into 5 sections, and all 5 of us had a section to do in a 2-day period. And so we just did that like 4 or 5 times, so the whole game would be combed over. And we had beta testers too, who were very helpful. But that was probably maybe the most stressful part of Shadows of Adam, is just like working out bugs, and and even you test and you have beta testers and hundreds of people look at it, and then you're still going to miss something because we just don't have resources.
Right.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
But I think
So-
with that
Crazy.
comes. Sorry, one more thing I would say.
I
Like,
was-
but that comes with the indie thing. That's nice about that is because we're so small and we can like have more of a connection with individual fans. We can like use that sort of power we have to make people feel comfortable. Like, I've had people bring up issues to me, and I'll directly respond to them and say, like, one guy ran into this like extremely rare bug like 2 weeks ago. It's like the most edge case of edge case of edge case. Like, I couldn't believe how he figured this out. And it basically soft locked his game. So I like gave him detailed instructions of how to get through it and fix it, and then we patched it up, and then I like sent him like a free soundtrack, and he was like
nice.
Cool.
really gracious. He's like, I can't believe the devs would take their time to talk to me. It's like, well,
That's awesome.
we have that ability because we're smaller, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. Wow.
So with how stressful all of that was in the crunch time and how crazy everything was, I guess I'm curious about your passion for the idea, like where the idea for this game originally came from. You said you brought somebody else in to write the story. So did your original idea was just I wanted to make a JRPG? That's just something I've always wanted to do, or like what was sort of the genesis for the idea? What made you passionate about it to see that through all the way through with all that stress and everything? Did the story come first, or did just the idea for a really cool JRPG come first, or was it music for you, or what was that?
I think it was more like a big picture vision for the game, which always was like a 16-bit styled JRPG, but modernized with some more convenience features, and kind of capture that those games that we loved when we were children. Because I'm 29 now, and when I was a teen and preteen, that was like the heyday for the PS1 and late SNES games, and that was like the games I grew up playing a lot. And so like, the vision was like creating a game like that. And we also had like a kind of a overall mantra of the game, which was simple, done well. Like, that was what every decision was to be filtered through. If it like, so there were a lot of decisions and ideas brought up by the team, a lot of great ideas, very creative ideas, but we end up cutting a lot of it because, you have to focus in. And it's easy just to brainstorm and come up with ideas till the cows come home, but it's harder to make a game. And in regards to your point about the story, I would say like when we brought Luke in, we had a very basic outline, like maybe a few character names, a few locations. Like, I knew I wanted there to be a lot of variety in dungeons, so we had already kind of decided like it'd be cool if there was like a wind-themed tower with currents and maybe more like a lava level, like a ethereal swamp thing. Which seems kind of like a weird way to design a game, but we sort of sent him this like basic bullet point guide with some characters and maybe a sketch of a plot, and he sort of took that and really worked it and made a lot of edits and introduced new characters and took some characters out, and I think it was a really interesting process how it all happened for sure, and I'm very happy with how it all came out.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's
Really
been
cool
very
to
well
hear about.
received so far. So
Yeah, from
congratulations.
what we can tell,
You
it's
guys-
been well received.
I loved it, and
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you guys were there when we were playing our live stream. I was really, really surprised and blown away by how good it is.
Oh,
and to
thank you.
anybody
Totally.
listening on the podcast, like, go check it out. You can watch our stream of it. You can go
Yeah.
look at trailers. It's a legit awesome JRPG.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's on Steam, so take a look at it.
Yeah.
Um,
We got all kinds of questions over here from people for
Yes.
you. So
Yeah, let's
first
get
one up
started.
here is from Digital Bamboo. They wanted to know, what was the most challenging part of developing the look of your game, and how did you overcome it?
So, I actually spoke to our art director about this because I previewed some of the comments, and he basically told me that what was the most challenging for us was finding artists who could deliver the quality of pixel art the game needed, but also do it within the budget that we had. So basically,
Right.
quality versus overhead.
Yeah.
But Tim, being such an expert art designer and a big picture guy, he really found the cream of the crop pixel artists, and he actually, I think, outsourced to about 3 different guys, and made sure that all 3 of them, kind of everything they did, fit the overall vision of the game. So I think the biggest challenge was like finding a good color palette. I think
Okay.
that was a really important thing to Tim, to have the right colors for the tone of the game he wanted to convey. And so, like, if you look at Shadows of Adam, there's a lot of like warm colors, like a lot of purples and greens.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
And that was sort of a deliberate choice. Also, it kind of themes with our story because there's this kind of a current theme in the game about the Wraith world and these underground like demons and they're sort of ethereal and otherworldly, so the purples and greens sort of help theme that concept, I think.
Yeah,
So-
it definitely gives that feeling.
that's awesome.
Yeah, really cool. I gotta say the in between frames for the keyframes for the pixel art animation as people are running, it just so good.
Yeah.
Really
just
smooth.
so well done. It was very smooth. You look at games from that time period, and it's like they're animating the sprite at maybe
3
8
frames
to
or
12
something that
for
they've got.
Right.
really slow like frame rate kind of, I guess, like 8 frames per second kind of thing. And it's just like, I don't know, but you guys were able to make something work pretty well out of that. But that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Okay, next question is from Walrus.
Walrus.
He asks, any interest to develop on the Nintendo Switch? Will you port Shadows of Adam over to the Nintendo Switch? And if so, digital or hard copy or both?
And also, since you mentioned the phone game kind of thing,
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess this would be a good time just to talk about all of the possible platforms that something like this could work on.
So I'll give you kind of the answer I give everyone as regarding the ports. We'd love to do that, and I never say never, but there's nothing in the cards currently. But I imagine if we did, we would probably do digital only because, like I mentioned with the overhead thing, we just try to keep things in a realistic thing. It's very easy for us to say, oh man, it'd be so cool if we could make like a SNES cartridge and a physical Switch game, and that's already like looking at tons of money. So I would love to see it ported, especially like PS4 or maybe the Vita. We've gotten a few offers, and we're currently talking to some folks. We're just trying to figure out if it's worth the return on the investment, if it's a good deal for everyone. And as far as mobile ports, we have been in talks with someone about doing a mobile port, so that might end up happening, but I can't say
You're
with
JavaScript
absolute
already.
certainty that a port will happen. I will say that to all the fans who have asked us, we do listen to that. We take it very seriously. I don't want to overpromise anything right now.
Very smart. Could you talk a little bit about how like digital, just downloading a game, has like affected the indie game industry? Especially since you're talking about going hard copy, the overhead's just ridiculous. But that used to be the only way games were ever made. Right. If you didn't do that, you didn't make a game.
Well, it's probably been a net positive, I'd imagine. But I don't know. I have a unique perspective on it because as a musician, I've seen the like in the last 20 years the rise of like digital downloads of music being a problematic thing.
Oh, piracy and such. Yeah.
And just like also like I'm very old school. I like to know who plays on what albums and see liner notes and such. But as far as digital consumption of video games, I don't know. I think it's fine. I have no issues with it. It's maybe possible to pirate Shadows of Adam. I think I was Google searching once, and like on the 11th page of Google, It was like, click here for a free cracked key of Shadows of Adam, and I was like,
honestly,
well,
though, that's probably just an SEO thing. They probably don't even have it. But I'll tell you from our perspective as filmmakers, YouTube. I mean, it used to be if you made a video or a movie. I mean, no one can see it
needed a distributor.
until you need a distributor.
That's true.
And all of a sudden, people can literally just stream video, and it's like, well, we have a job now, and we couldn't. It would have been really difficult to break into that before. So I figured for video games, there would be a similar thing as far as a team of 5 people can now make a game that anyone can just download.
Well,
Right.
and speaking about that, in terms of Steam as well, what has been your experience working with Steam
yes.
and getting the game onto Steam? How easy or difficult is that to do? I don't know,
what's the process
what's
for
the
that?
process?
So Steam is, I think, about to change their policy, but when we went to Steam, we had to go through Steam Greenlight, which I'm not 100% how it works, how the algorithm works, but essentially you put your game up for Steam Greenlight, and you have to get enough yes votes in a certain amount of time, and I don't know how the factors are weighed, but essentially we got approved, and we sort of piggybacked off the Kickstarter by launching the Steam Greenlight in conjunction, so we could drive that Kickstarter traffic to Steam Greenlight.
So was that something you recommend doing?
I think so, yeah. I think that was smart because we got, about the time our Kickstarter got funded, we got greenlit. So it was like, that was a really great week for something classic. Like both those feelings. And it was kind of down to the wire too. But it seems like Steam is moving in the direction where they either want to get rid of Steam Greenlight and just have like a barrier to entry in the form of just like a initiation fee, which could be as high as I've heard from like $200 to like $5,000.
Okay.
And I have sort of mixed
That's
feelings
about how much a dev kit costs for a console.
It's like you were saying about the YouTube thing. It's so easy to get content out there, and that's wonderful. And music too. It's so easy to get my music out there, and I love that. But the downside is there's just so much content, so much saturation. It's harder and harder to break through.
That's a good
And
point.
a lot of the complaints on Steam is that there's a lot of subpar quality games that go on Steam.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We're aware.
So you know, just like
so it's tough to rise above, maybe even like the reputation of Steam Greenlight, where people usually see it as like, that's just where a bunch of people throw asset flips and a bunch of like just terrible no effort games.
It's starting to get that association.
And you're trying to break through the sea of that and be like, no, look, we made something, we worked really hard on it.
Right.
Look at us. Like, how do you go about doing that?
Well, I just think you have to have quality, and I think the cream rises to the top. I would like to think. We, like I mentioned earlier, we knew that JRPG being such a niche thing, especially turn-based JRPGs, and with the rise of like RPG Maker and the barrier to entry being easier with not having to have programming skills, which I think is a great thing, by the way. It's a great way to get your creative outlets out. But so we invested a lot of that money early on to get some really nice looking graphics because people sort of they decide things with their eyes, I guess, and I don't know. I felt I was starting to detect that like the real retro like 8-bit kind of graphics was sort of becoming a toxic thing. So I am glad we kind of went away from that. And with Tim kind of spearheading it, I think the nice graphics helped us, and just like really presenting the most polished and professional product we could, so we could stand out. And it was an uphill battle for Shadows of Adam. I mean, it's a very retro turn-based style. It's set in a more medieval, traditional setting, I suppose. So already those things are kind of working against us. And
totally for the modern,
And then the association with just RPG Maker, for better or worse. And I don't know. It's definitely a tricky thing, but we've always just kind of scraped by somehow, and so I'm very grateful for that. And thanks to all the wonderful fans we've had who have been like the biggest evangelists for Shadows of Adam, I think.
I'm sure that's huge.
That leads pretty well into this other question we have here for you. Skellhart's asking, what are your thoughts on RPGs that are set in modern settings like Persona?
I think it's great. I mean, my philosophy is, I think people that try different ideas, try to tweak the formula or try radically new things, I think that's wonderful. I think that's what art should do. Ours was a little bit more reverent and traditional, but we still try to take chances. But I have nothing against... I don't think a JRPG has to be a certain way or has to have a certain combat or has to be a certain setting. I think it's important to have folks who are always trying to try new things. I think that's very important.
So you were saying that you felt that, at least it, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like you thought the medieval traditional fantasy setting was working against you a little bit. Is that true? Is that accurate? Is that what you were saying, or was I mistaken?
I that's just kind of the gist I get. I know at face
Just the
value,
typical
like
JRPG,
if you saw
yeah.
Shadows of Adam just for a second, you'd be like, okay, another hero with a sword, and they're in a castle, and they're riding, and they're,
So
you know
it
what I mean?
feels-
Like,
it seems like people see that as generic
maybe.
or
Generic.
stereotypical.
That's a good
yeah, and
So
then maybe their
what-
confirmation bias kicks in about the quality they
Yeah.
expect from a game like that because of how many there are. So it's
So
it's harder.
what was
Yeah.
the reason maybe then why that was the way you went with the setting? Was that something that the writer came in and thought was best, and you kind of went with that? Or was that something from the beginning that you wanted to do? Was it easier to do it that way rather than do a more like science fiction setting or a modern setting? Or what was the reason why you ultimately decided to do that? Or did you become aware of the fact that people feel this way about fantasy settings after you had already, you were too far into development at that point?
Well, I think the short answer is we just kind of like games like that, and I think it's important to not make every decision based on what the trends are, and to always be honest with yourself. I mean, we spent 3.5 years on Shadows of Adam, and there were many times in the way if we had maybe gone in a different direction, different setting, or tried different things, we maybe would have had more attention. But then it's like, what's the point? We all have full-time gigs, though. We're doing this to make money, of course, but also to fulfill our creative outlets and to have fun. And so there's an element of being true to yourself, and I think that's important too, because people can see non-sincerity a mile away. I think one of the best compliments we get from Shadows of Adam is it really has a lot of heart. It feels very sincere, and a lot of people say I can really tell the developers really love these games and really understand what makes these games great, and that's all we can ask for, right? So. Yeah, I think a lot of our games that are our favorites are like Final Fantasy IV, 5,
I
6,
definitely felt that. Yeah.
Lufia. We love Earthbound, even though it's not set in a modern kind of setting. So that's kind of our bread and butter. And so I guess short answer is we just sort of I guess we just wanted to. I don't know.
Makes sense.
So no open world Shadows of Adam.
Yeah, I mean, Shadows of
That's not
Adam
gonna happen.
is pretty much, it's kind of an on the rails game. It's more,
Right,
it's like very JRPG in the sense that it's a linear storytelling experience. I have nothing against open world games. I'm not personally a huge fan of them, but I know that some folks really love that, and that's wonderful. I think that's great. I think as many variety, is like trying new things. It's great. I have nothing against that. But for us, we wanted a more traditional, linear, on the rails story-based JRPG, I think.
Nice. Cool.
All right. Oblivion here is asking, this is a little bit long, but as a recent graduate from college with a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science and now a junior C# developer, I've always been interested in making my own indie games. Is there any advice you can give for someone who has no real-world experience in indie game development? What are some of the languages, third-party libraries, and software you recommend? Are there any resources you use consistently when developing indie games?
Well, I might not be as qualified to answer the last part of the question, but as far as saying you have no real-world experience, that might just be the time to like find a few cheapo projects, collaborations to work on, just to kind of build your skill set and your portfolio. Like for instance, I'm a professional composer, trumpet player, and I've written hundreds of music for instrumentalists and live instruments, but I've never actually written professional video game music. And so Shadows of Adam was actually a great vehicle for me to like learn more about production and using sample libraries and mixing and such. So like using a project like that is a great way to like hone your skills. I'd have to ask our programmers. I could ask them to maybe comment on the comment later about what they might recommend specifically, but I would probably say being versatile, knowing a lot of languages is important. Knowing the logic, and just getting a lot of practice, I think.
So reaching out maybe to other projects that are going on just to lend a hand, freelance, and
I think so.
Experience.
I know there's kind of a stigma with like underselling yourself or like doing pro bono work, but like when you don't have a lot of market value, it's hard to get people to pay you what maybe someone who has 10 years of experience. So there might be someone who's looking not maybe to create like a top tier professional indie game. They might be just, hey, I want to make a little game, and I could do some programming, you know. I mean, that's how me and Josh started making games. And we both started an RPG Maker, and then I started doing music professionally, and he started doing coding professionally. So years later when we met again, we sort of were like, we're ready to put our skills to a professional level. But that was years and years of making crappy games. He made like Flash games. I think he made like
Nice.
simple like little computer games, just kind of learning the code more. I think he went to school for that as well. So in fact, if that questioner wants to get in touch with us, I could probably put him in touch with Josh. He might have a lot of useful stuff to say on that.
Oblivion. You heard that, Oblivion?
Yeah, so
can reach you
Oblivion,
on
just
Twitter.
send us an email and
Cool.
or a tweet, and I'll get you in touch with Josh.
Okay. And what's the best? What is your email? What's the best way? I guess we could put that in the description.
Yeah,
we'll
just,
probably do that.
Yeah,
We'll get that
info at
information from you.
somethingclassic.net.
We'll put it in the
There you go.
description. There it is.
Cool.
That's how you reach out to those guys.
So,
All right. Next question is also from Walrus.
Walrus,
Says,
man.
will you stick with the 16-bit style, or will you play around with different eras like N64 platformers?
I would
guess
assume for future
yeah,
games, right?
and that kind of leads into a question I had: is you guys looking to do another?
yeah,
game?
how would a transition like that?
We have nothing on the docket yet, but I personally, now that I've kind of had that 2 months, kind of relaxed now, I would like to eventually do something else. I would personally like to do another like 16-bit kind of JRPG, because that's just the genre I feel most inspired to work with. And the reason why is because I think a lot of the things we learned during Shadows of Adam could be much improved on.
Okay.
Like I feel like
so you
my
want to
music.
perfect? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we got so much great criticism and feedback from the community, and watching. I mean, I probably watched like 100 streams of Shadows of Adam, so I've learned a lot
Yeah.
just doing
Nice.
that, watching Let's Plays. I
Cool.
feel like I've seen what we did well. I've seen what maybe could have used improvement. I saw what we thought might have been received as a certain way, but wasn't. So I feel with just that experience, we're in a unique position to maybe do another game and use our brand to help push it. I can't speak for the other guys because I know everyone has, different. I know maybe Tim was talking about doing something on the side. So we'll see. But I'd love to do another 16-bit game and just improve on what we've done already.
yeah. So as a follow-up to that, is there an aspect to the game that you thought would be like received really well that maybe people didn't like as much as you guys were anticipating? I know you guys got a lot of really good feedback through the development process, so maybe there were no surprises, but were you surprised at how people took certain parts of the game?
You know what I was really surprised by, and this was actually surprised in a positive way. I had no idea how our combat would be received, because we kind of use this unique like AP regeneration system where everyone
is
has a
pretty
fixed
different,
amount
yeah.
and you restore every round. And at first I was very skeptical because it just seemed like it was too gimmicky to me, but everyone was like, Tyler, I really think we need a hook. And we tried it, and just watching players play and the way we kind of did our skills were every skill is unique and every skill is useful the entire game. So like
I
Azrael
love
learns.
that, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, that's just like the Final Fantasy thing where like you have like 4 fires and only one of them's useful at the end. We didn't want that.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah,
like
exactly.
watching folks play, I've been really happy to see how much they've enjoyed the combat, how much strategy and thought they put into. And also, my most proudest moment, and I'm going to take all the credit for this. Okay, so
Do
there's
it.
a move that one of our characters, Curtis, has, and it's called Mind Read. And it's essentially a scan move. Just tells you their HP, their weaknesses. Now, I don't know if you guys are like me, but I never use scan in Final Fantasy, ever. Like, it's just one of those
Right.
moves you have. And for a lot of that reason, everyone in the dev team was like, we should just cut this skill out the game. But we got a great suggestion from a Kickstarter backer, because you can see the HP bars of normal enemies, but when you fight a boss, it's like has a question mark, so you can't see it. And the backer said, what if when you used Mind Read, it displayed that HP bar? I was like, that's a great idea. So we implemented that. And then we also like really did a lot of work with making sure every enemy had like exploitable weaknesses, and you couldn't just like spam your best attacks. You had to really think about it. And so like from there, I've been really happily surprised to see how many people use the skill Mind Read. Like I'm probably going to make a plaque for myself that says I made a game where people use the scan move. I did it, Mom.
Nice.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, your mom would be so happy.
I think
super cool.
with the battle system, I love that you guys did everything. It seems to me to encourage people to use a wide variety of moves.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, like when I play games like that, I try and hoard my MP.
Oh, I keep the
And,
magic.
you
yeah,
hoard
because
the
you never
ethers.
know.
You never know when you're going
Yeah.
to need those things. You don't want to get, and so you end up using just your regular
Yeah.
attack move most of the time.
Most
But I
of the
love
time.
that there's so much variety to it. You guys did an excellent
That's
job.
true.
Yeah, that's been nice. Yeah, we definitely wanted people to use the skills because not only are they effective, they're also fun to look at. And we have these nice
Yeah.
animations and these great sound effects. I have seen a few players like do like the traditional like hoarding thing. And about like the
Okay.
third dungeon, you just sort of hit a wall where like the monsters will just start destroying you if you don't like start thinking about using your skills. And you're like, why?
Okay,
and then
nice.
it kind of hits like, why have I been hoarding my skills? I regenerate my AP every
Right,
time.
it regenerate. Exactly,
Right.
yeah.
I was actually going to bring that up. I think that in tandem with the way that you've implemented the Libra, the scan skill,
Yeah.
those are some really, really cool, unique aspects to Shadows of Adam that sort of like improve upon some of the common maybe annoyances or even just like, accepted sort of parts of older JRPGs that could have used improvement. I think you guys did awesome with that.
And we've already talked about this here.
We actually already went over
Where
that.
the idea
Oh,
came
so
from,
we've
what's
gone
based
through
on.
all the...
We've gone through all the questions.
all
We
the
went
questions
through the
from Patreon?
questions, yeah, that we had
Cool.
that had been submitted.
Well, I guess before we close, I want to talk a little bit about the music since you worked on the music.
Yeah.
And I love music. I love composing. I don't get to do it as often as I would like, but composing for video games is something that I would love to try at some point. What were some of the unique challenges there? Now you say
Especially
you're coming
16-bit score, right?
Yes, exactly, because
Yeah.
you're not just getting together, your libraries, all of your modern orchestral libraries. I don't know if you started there or if you started with the 16-bit, sort of sounds and sort of worked with that. And coming from you say you play trumpet. Coming from that background, I know there are a lot of composers. They're piano players, and they compose everything on the piano first. So, like, what was your approach to that, and what were some of the challenges you came across writing music for Shadows of Adam?
The main challenges were just like production related, like panning instruments, using reverb effectively, mixing kind of stuff like that, which I didn't really have much experience because my background as a composer is like as a jazz composer, orchestral composer, where I make sheet music and I print it out and I put it on people's stands and I stand out front and count the tune off and they play it, right? So
Nice.
they're mixing themselves, they're balancing, they're bringing their artistry. But as far as like what samples I use, I this was originally 8-bit, like I mentioned, so it was like all chiptune-y. So I like wrote like 5 of the first tunes and they were just like chiptune, sound like a kind of like a Game Boy game or something. But then I just sort of got like some cheapo libraries and some default sounds that was already in Logic, and just used that and just kind of learned as I went. Like as far as composing, you mentioned like composers being piano players. That has made me. I had to think about that a lot because I've always been the kind of guy that I don't compose a lot on the piano. I'm a decently proficient pianist, but I'm not great. So a lot of my music is more linear and melodic because I play a linear instrument. Like, I mean, I can only play one note at a time, right, on trumpet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like I've
Unless your trumpet's broken.
often thought about that. Like piano players and guitarists especially do compose differently because they might be writing from their instruments. So most of the music I wrote for Shadows of Adam, I would write in notation software, and I would look at the music on a grand staff so I could like see the counterpoint and the horizontal and vertical shapes, and that was great. And I realized that writing that way was how my bread and butter and what I usually did. So on a few tunes, I was like, well, let me try a different way. What if I recorded straight from my keyboard into Logic? So like this guy right here.
Yeah.
Well, I bought that.
Oh, that's tiny.
Yeah, it's a little tiny keyboard. It's awesome. I use it a lot on the road. But I would, I said,
Cool.
what would happen instead of writing sheet music the way I usually do? Because I think that process is making me compose a certain way. What if I tried, like, I'm just gonna like play a part into Logic, and then I'm gonna play another part, and then I'm gonna try to compose that way. I wonder if the process will be different, if the music will come out differently. And I found that actually that sort of approach made my music a lot more unique and different. and I was happy with the outcome. So
Wow.
in later pieces, I sort of took like a blended approach. Like sometimes I'd start in the sheet music, and then I would put it in the Logic, and then occasionally I would say, okay, this part needs something, so I'd get out my keyboard and play like a little thing and try it out. So it's like that was an interesting discovery for me because I'm such a classically taught composer, so I've never done music that way, but it was definitely really fun and
That's
different.
so interesting because I'm like the absolute opposite of you. I'm not classically trained at all. I don't write sheet music. I just do it the way you just described, and so that's really funny that you sort of discovered that along the way, and then that became, for you, at least what it sounds like, sort of like the way you preferred to compose for this game.
Yeah, and I think what I also think I was thinking about it too. I was like, how are most of these composers writing when they were writing 16-bit music? What was their process? I'm not sure it was them sitting at a notation software or a piece of paper and sketching out the parts. They probably were playing it on the keyboard, and the music sounds a certain way because of the process. So I said, what if I tried that process? I might generate a different way of composing. And I'm not saying either one's right or wrong. I'm saying I think it's all worth exploring. I'm very proud of my traditional background. I think it gives me a lot of edge on maybe composers who don't. But at the end of the day, the music's just got to sound good. So it doesn't matter how you did it. It's just got to sound good.
True.
Right. So, talking about when you guys were getting ready to release this commercially, right? You're getting ready to send press releases out. I can't imagine what it would be like just from maybe the business side, marketing side. Like, how are we going to go about? We have this great thing in the works. It's coming together. How are we going to let people know it's there? You ran a Kickstarter campaign and raised a good chunk of money, but like, how did you go about like spreading the word, marketing, making sure people were aware of you? Like, what was the process? Because you said you were project manager on this as well, right? So I'm assuming that a large part of that work fell on you as well. So I guess, what was that process like? Just getting people to be aware of the game.
Well, when we got closer to release, we did hire a marketing guy who helped out a lot.
Good.
But like a lot of the work we did as in Something Classic was just very grassroots. Like I think we got in touch by me just randomly tweeting at you. And you'd be surprised. I would encourage indie developers. Like, what helped Shadows of Adam so much was just me reaching out to streamers and YouTubers and content creators and just say, hey, here's a game. You want to check it out? I'd love it if you streamed it. And they go, okay, I'll check it out. And we were like super grassroots with everything. So like, when we released, I mean, we had our traditional press stuff. Our marketing guy reached out to outlets and got us reviews and such. But I personally contacted a bunch of like JRPG streamers, and on release day, I basically had it from like the moment I woke up at 8 a.m. through like midnight. There was at least one person streaming the game, and I was in every single stream, or one of us was in every single stream, and we were answering questions, interacting with potential buyers, making jokes, having a good time, and I think that paid a lot of dividends for us because we're small and we're niche, so we have to do that. I think can't just make a game. You have to interact with fans, and I think we've done a good job with that. And I have to give a shout out to our fans. They're a small but very passionate group, and they've been so wonderful. There's some great Let's Players that have done great series on Shadows of Adam. There's some wonderful streamers that streamed us when no one else would. A lot of people who evangelized us on Twitter and Facebook. I had a beta tester. We sent him a free poster, and I'm probably going to send him like something whenever we make like a physical thing or whatever. I'm going to send him something. But he I looked at his Steam profile. He had 100 hours logged in the Shadows of Adam. That's how much testing he did for us.
Wow!
Shoot, man.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
you just rely on the generosity of your fans, and don't be a dick, to put it like I said, we get comments on our Steam page all the time with feedback, or maybe someone had an issue, and you got to listen to their concern. You got I mean, not everything you're gonna do. Like one guy made like this ridiculous suggestion. I can't think what it was off the top of my head, but I was like, well, we're not gonna make that change, but I appreciate you bringing that up. Maybe consider this or this, but you can't just be like blowing them off,
Right. Yeah.
I think we can't afford to because we're so small. I think.
Yeah. That's
Cool.
That's super
Nice.
awesome. Well, we're
What are your favorite games of all time?
yeah.
My favorite
Yeah, list them.
Okay, let's see. This might be a little predictable. I'm gonna start with the non-predictable ones. So GoldenEye 64,
Oh, nice.
and you can't pick Odd Job. I mean, that's
I know that's not
the
fair.
11th commandment.
That's not fair.
GoldenEye. I love Mario 64. I love Super Mario World, Mario 3. I'm a big Mario fan. I think those three
Nice.
games are like the innovative, great Mario games.
Mm-hmm.
As far as JRPG goes, of course, Final Fantasy 6, incredible. Chrono Trigger, one of my favorites. FF7, FF9.
Nice.
I'm trying to get into Breath of Fire, but I've been having a little trouble with that.
That is
I love Earthbound. Let's see, PS1, like I liked the Xenogears a lot, or Xenogears, and
Yeah.
that might be it. I think I've been replaying FF10, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
Yeah, so mainly JRPGs,
Good list right
platformers.
there, man.
Oh, Donkey Kong Country, I love that game.
Oh,
Banjo-
of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Decent game.
Game with killer music too.
Oh, speaking of the
Oh, yeah.
soundtrack, yeah, that
Yeah.
game. Oof. Beautiful.
Pixel.
Oh, no. Here's a question.
Oh.
How did you find us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. So I probably, like many other folks, just found the. I think the first one was the Chrono Trigger review.
The Chrono
Oh.
Trigger review. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I actually was doing a lot of game dev research, and I want to give a quick shout out to my friend he's at the game design forum. He does these wonderful reverse game designs of classic games, and one of them he does is Chrono Trigger. You should go read that. It's amazing.
wow.
But I was just looking for as much resources on Chrono Trigger because I felt it was a good model for like an extremely streamlined and well made game. And so I found Mike's review on that, and then just from there, just started kind of clicking on other links. And yeah, I've been a big fan of your guys' content. So this is kind of like really cool that I get to talk to you guys. And right around the time like Final Fantasy 15 came out, I think I started like watching you guys' podcast. And so
yeah.
I kind of got
Sounds
the
about right.
gist of what kind of content you guys were putting out, what you like. So I think I just tweeted at you. I just said, hey, here's a game, here's a screenshot.
I think
Big
so.
fan of your pro. And then,
I'm a sucker for pixel art, so
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're big fans
just love it.
of the look of the game for sure.
Oh yeah, the game looks wonderful.
And that's kind of the sort of thing. If we make a game, like the pixel art route is how we would want to go too.
yeah,
Totally.
totally.
So
There's a lot of
really-
potential
really
there, I
get
think.
that.
I think so. It's coming back in a way I don't think anyone really could have predicted.
So, if people want to reach out to you, either to lend a hand on future projects or just ask questions about the game or whatever, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you? Just one more time, either on Twitter or is email better, or are they both fine?
Yeah, email if it's like more a detailed thing. You need to like really type some in depth. I would say email us at info@somethingclassic.net. But for any like just general inquiries or want to chat, I think our Twitter is best, and that's @somethingclassic. But classic is spelled CLASSC, so there's no I in it. Just find us on Twitter or email us, and we're happy to talk. We like talking, so as you might be able to tell.
Perfect.
Awesome, man.
And we're always
Oh,
happy
yeah.
to talk to other folks, encourage you, or give you advice, or hear from you guys if you have advice for us. And I hope you guys can all check out Shadows of Adam. It's on Steam and on our website, shadowsofadam.com. And love to hear from you guys.
Can they do a direct download from your website then, or do they have to have the Steam client?
Okay, so you can get DRM free on our website,
Okay.
shadowsofadam.com. And you can, I believe we're on Humble Bundle as well, and that's also
no
DRM
way.
free. So if you want to go that route,
That's awesome.
that's great too. So yeah, there's a lot of options for getting Shadows of Adam.
Awesome.
And it's also on Mac and Linux too. I know those
Oh,
folks
great.
don't get a lot of love, but yeah, you can play it on your Linux and your Mac too. So
Awesome.
for all 10 of
Cool,
you,
cool.
welcome.
Well, we love the game. We hope you guys will also love the game who are watching it. Please be sure to check it out. You can watch our stream on it. You can talk to these guys directly about the game at the sources that he listed there. And we will see you again really soon. If you're listening to this audio only, you can find us at Dark Pixel Gaming on YouTube. That's where we do our game analysis, or our filmmaking and visual effects work on strictly Dark Pixel on YouTube. All right, guys, we will see you again really soon. Have a wonderful week. Peace out.
Peace.